fantastic. This is GT Racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh. Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Welcome one and welcome all to SimSpeed TV for the next round of the Geodesic Omologato Championship from Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the fourth round. We've already seen 3 fantastic rounds of racing at Watkins Glen, Silverstone, and last week racing at the Nürburgring was round 2, and last round we were racing at Silverstone. My goodness. It is early in the morning for me, Reese Gardiner, alongside David Haynes in the commentary box. David, it is time for the draft to come into play here at the Indianapolis road course. A brilliant circuit, a long straight, and plenty of opportunities for passing, but a twisty Sector 1 is going to make traffic a bit difficult here in our prototype and GT classes.
Yeah, this track layout, very, very similar to what Formula One raced at here a good couple years ago, in that it's a tale of sort of 2 sectors, but incredibly long pit straight featuring the banked oval turn 1, and then an infield that is quite twisty, quite narrow, and with a hairpin or 2 to boot. This is the track. If you need help finding it, it's helpfully located in a suburb called Speedway, which makes the official address Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Indianapolis. Speedway, Indiana.
Indeed it does, and there is the layout that we run. Turns 8, 9, and 10, of course, turned into a bunch of sweeping bends rather than the double hairpin that it used to be when Formula One raced at Indianapolis. This particular scan of the track dates from about 2008 to 2010. And the road course, of course, has been around in that form since about the turn of the millennium. You see turns 1 to 7. It's just a never-ending sequence of corners as well. Traffic is going to be a little bit of an issue there, probably into turn 10 as well, where the track really tightens up. Of course, out of turns 12 and 13, that banked corner, and you come across this historic start-finish line where the bricks are across the line. And we've got a few things to talk about coming into this round, David. Championship standings first up. We'll take a look at prototype first, because Marcus Deck has dominated so far. But the guy in second in the standings, unfortunately, we have lost him. Adam Crane has pulled out of this championship. There's been a clash with another sim racing series that he is competing in. So a bit unfortunate there to see, well, Adam Crane finally breaking through for the win in prototype, but now someone's going to have to bring the charge to Marcus Deck from another area.
Yep, indeed. Broke through and then said goodbye. But there are your championship standings. It could still be Graham Sanders. It still could be Connor Harrington. Tyson Meyer, dare I say, a hit and miss Quirketized, but when he is on the game, when he is up to speed, he is a very, very quick driver. So if some of the tracks later in the season suit him, I would not count out Tyson Meyer grabbing a win, as he has done in the previous iterations of this championship several times before.
Yes, indeed, and Connor Harrington's actually put it on pole in the prototype class once again, so we shall see how that one goes. Dakota Fripp in the GT class has dominated. He's won all 3 rounds so far, and the likes of Spencer Kostowicz and Tristan Iglesias not able to quite take the fight to him as they would have wanted. A few mistakes at the Nürburgring and at Silverstone as well. Johan Boyson in P5. He has had to fight back quite a bit so far over the course of this season. But the GT class, still a lot to play for there in the top 10. I can't wait to see how it goes here at Indianapolis. Dakota Fripp has put it on pole once again in the GT class by 2/10. So despite that 8 kilograms of ballast the Audi R8 is carrying, hasn't stymied him that much. Neither has it in the Gentleman's Championship. Dakota's had 2 perfect rounds where he hasn't got a single incident, and the Gentleman's standings are determined by how many incidents you actually get in a round, thanks to iRacing's automated system. And Dakota Fripp seems to have that sorted too.
Yeah, he's looking very good in that one. It's like golf. The guys behind can only catch up if the guy in the lead makes a mistake. There is no way for Corey McLemore to erase his previous incidents. He's just got to be good and wait for Dakota Fripp to make a mistake, which everyone is waiting on. And after 3 rounds, he hasn't. So, that's a difficult one to claw the ground back once the horse is out of the paddock.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, there's still going to be quite a bit to play for in that first sector here at Indianapolis, because there's every chance that an off-track will be gotten by at least every driver in the field. Qualifying is now over, or just about is, and we'll be able to take a look very soon at what it's like to pilot a car quickly around Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Connor Harrington in the number 44. He's certainly shown great potential and almost broke through for the win at Silverstone, but unfortunately, mistakes stymieing that. But here is the pole lap in our prototype class out of the final turn, not quite taking the shortest route through, but gaining quite a bit of speed down this front straight and then braking hard into turn 1. It's a bit faster than the Formula 1 version of the track, but a very quick S-bend to start off the lap, and it's all about throttle control through here. Bit of oversteer on entry for Connor Harrington coming into turn 4. And running the brake bias to the rear necessary in this section of the track, but you also want a car that rotates really well on throttle, especially through this turn right here. You want to get the line right for the right-hander, and be careful not to get an off-track on the exit of that corner either, because if you go a bit too far beyond the curb, then it's lap over. Then another fast S-bend. This is turns 8, 9, and 10. You're constantly slowing down for the tight left-hander at turn 10, and you've got to be careful not to cut it too much. It's difficult to sight the turn in for it, and then you have to nail the throttle out of this third last corner and then flat out through the final 2 turns here at Indianapolis. A brilliant circuit in my mind. I've always enjoyed racing around here, and Connor Harrington going around there in 1 minute 16 and a half seconds. Pretty good lap there.
Yeah, pretty rapid indeed. I can't help but notice on the timing and scoring that the top speed, the end of straight speed for Connor Harrington, 304 kilometers an hour, very much eclipsing Graham Sanders in second and Tyson Meyer in third, 299 and 302 respectively. So he has that car, I think, set up to be strong in a straight line. We talked about it last round, but I reckon he's got to go for one of the taller gear stacks here.
Yeah, certainly. Harrington ended up running a higher downforce setup at Silverstone and running the slightly shorter gear ratios. All right, no stranger to pole lap runs. Dakota Fripp, David, what's a lap like in the Audi R8 LMS?
Quite a bit quicker than a 1990 Mazda MX-5 around here, to be sure. But this is a great onboard, as he has no troubles keeping it pinned through the banked corner, just trying to minimize the scrub to carry as much speed from the timing line at the yard of Grex all the way down to the braking zone at turn 1, up against the wall, looking for braking markers, looking for the curb to then carry speed through the S-bend, as you say, tracking out and then letting the car breeze over to the left-hand side of the circuit to then brake into this turn 4. And turn 5 is a little bit of a nothing. Then you set the car up into this long hairpin. Not entirely different to the end of the lap at Silverstone, in that it's one of those hairpins where you sort of take 2 apexes out of the car. You get out a little wide in the middle and then bring it back, and then speed onto this back straight. Going for this section of corners. It's been remodeled a half dozen times, it feels like. We've got the slightly tighter version of the final left-hander, and brings us to a corner where the drive off is so important. And I think Dakota Fripp went a little early in the shift into third gear there, just to make sure the car was settled. Can't do as much in these GT3 cars for trimming out the drag and the downforce. We're probably running pretty similar downforce levels. There's just a little bit of rear wing angle here and there, but you see up into sixth gear. And he uses all of the V10, and he sets the pole time for 1:24.8.
Yeah, that's excellent there, and he was giving one of the Team Tortuga BMWs a bit of a draft on the way there too, but really says something about Dakota Fripp's pace that he didn't have to rely on a draft at all for that time. He's got that Audi completely sorted. We've had a bit of a development while we were looking at the pole laps. Garrett Thompson has been disqualified because apparently he continued driving after qualifying had been declared over. I'm not quite sure what the specific reason is, but Garrett Thompson, he'd already set the slowest time in qualifying. Unfortunately, he's not going to be taking the start.
Well, so long as more than 6 cars take the start, we'll be doing pretty well for a race on this layout.
Yeah, we certainly will. We got to remind you, of course, Omologato. We still have the code SPEED2021. If you use that code when you're shopping on the Omologato website, you'll be able to get a free silicone wristband. And the watch that we're going to be highlighting today, well, Omologato is motorsport-inspired watches, and they've got a bunch of timepieces that really evoke these fantastic circuits around the world. We're going to look at the Indy Automatic. Have a look at that. Beautiful watch, and quite the wristband too. A couple of holes drilled in there for some extra weight saving.
Yeah, and those bricks, those famous bricks, 2 Indianapolis models from Omologato, the Automatic you see there, and also the Omologato Indianapolis Chronograph, which I think one of the Geodesic guys said they had one of. Jay says it looks very, very nice. And yeah, certainly that is the watch of the round. And as we said, you can get it on the Omologato website and use the code SPEED2021. You'd be supporting this championship, and for your troubles, you'd also get a free band included.
Indeed. Remember that, Speed 2021, and certainly that is quite the nice timepiece. Sitting on those tyres in its rightful spot, but it would be even more rightful on your wrist. Thank you very much to Omologato for your support of this championship. Hopefully the drivers put on a fantastic show tonight. We've got 90 minutes of racing coming up very shortly. Just a minute to go in the session before we tick on over to this 90-minute race. And we should think about the strategy now as we prepare to get going. LMP2 running about 2.3 litres per lap, and the tank will last about 45 minutes in general. It'll probably last a bit shorter around here thanks to the big amount of time spent on throttle down the front straight, but it's going to be a bit more complicated in the GTs, David. Everyone's got a 60% fuel tank capacity restriction. There have been some drivers who have been able to stretch it to a one-stop strategy with some fuel saving, but not sure they'll be able to do that here. We might be guaranteed a two-stop with the reduced capacity.
Well, Silverstone sure was a mixed bag on the GT strategy, and I think we're definitely going to see the same again here. It's a much quicker lap than Nürburgring or Silverstone or some others. That means traffic is going to be something for sure here, more than at some other tracks as well. And the more the traffic is, I think the more it opens up going one way or the other on the strategy, and something could be gained from doing something different to everyone else.
Yes, indeed. But we'll have to see what opportunities arise. I think certainly there's going to be opportunities for fuel saving down the straight. We'll find out in just a moment. The start for round 4 of the Geodesic Omologato Championship coming up very soon.
There's a story on this island. History lives here. If you listen closely, you can still hear the echo of a Dino, smell the petrol of a Carrera, feel the grace of an LP. In those days, lives were lost and fortunes were won in the blink of an eye. It's no longer that simple in today's world. But on an island, it's almost as if time stands still. Honoring the past by racing into the future. Motorsport, it's in our DNA.
You're watching the Geodesic Omologato Championship, round 4 from Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course on the iRacing platform. We have ticked over into the race session and we'll be able to go through the grid very, very shortly. My name's Reese Gardner. If you're just joining us with David Haynes alongside me, it's Connor Harrington and Graham Sanders on the front row in the prototype class. Be interesting to see if Connor Harrington can pull off this lead after taking pole. Tyson Meyer, the second Geodesic, LMP2 in third alongside Andrew Berry, with Hayden Gober and Jason Gotter completing the 6-car prototype field here. Randall McGrew set a time in practice, but not in qualifying. So let's see if McGrew decides to take the grid. But Dakota Fripp on pole, David, alongside Corey McLemore. It's going to be a tightly contested GT class here today.
Yeah, sure will be, with McLemore, I think, in the BMW there. What can the BMW do on tyres over the longer runs? It's got John Botifer and Tristan Iglesias for the next row in GT. And the GT field runs a lot deeper than the prototype field, and that is going to make it interesting. As behind Iglesias comes Kostovic, who I feel like has actually been robbed of a couple good results, unfortunately. And Bo Rigger, Zach, Johan Boyson, Orson Morales, Anthony Rossimano, Jordan Fisher, Nick McLaughlin, Daniel Tovel, David Browning, John Seslak, and Aaron Ackles.
Yeah, that's the top 14 in GT, and Garrett Thompson unfortunately getting DQ'd at the end of qualifying, and we see a whole bunch of drivers that have not set times there, and you'll see my name down there in the bottom left. That's my mistake. I accidentally joined as a driver instead of a spectator, so ignore me. Focus on the drivers up ahead. Maxime Detilly, Zach Plummer, Spencer Kostovic, John Derrick, all those drivers have shown themselves to be quite competitive in this class. We'll see if they manage to bring home a good result. They are all away now on the formation lap. And a bit of a change from previous rounds, David. There's no starting zone for this round. Both classes are apparently going to go on the iRacing green flag, and that's owing to the nature of the final sector at this circuit. It really is just a flat-out blast with a couple of sweepers.
Yeah, I mean, the last proper corner is, what, half a mile or so before the start-finish line. It's not like you know, come out of a corner onto the pit straight and the starting line is right there. It is a flat-out blast from the far end of the circuit around, and then up onto the banking, through the banking, and then all the length of the pit straight. So it makes sense that that is what the starting zone does. 6 prototypes lined up, and they are very quickly going to catch those GT cars. It's only going to be a couple minutes into this race, and they are going to be right in the traffic.
They certainly are, and we're going to be racing into the sunset here tonight. It's coming up to 6:45 in the evening in sim time, which means we're going to be finishing this race at about 8:15 p.m. Let's see how the prototype field goes for this start. We focus on both classes. The gap has been left by the GT class, and Dakota Fripp, they're just waiting for the drivers to form up behind him. The prototype field has already formed up, and the safety car will pull into pit lane very, very shortly, just after that sweeping pit entry that everyone is going to take. The safety car goes in a bit later. Let's see what Connor Harrington can do here, taking the start. Dakota Fripp on pole in GT. Dakota's already gone there. We've got the green flag in the GT class, and the prototype class have waited until the iRacing green flag to go. I'm wondering if that's going to mean that the GT class start is going to be under investigation, but we are away in the Geodesic Omologato Championship, and Harrington leads into turn 1. The two Geodesic cars running side by side, as well as the two Action Sim Sport cars of Andrew Berry and Hayden Gober, but they sort themselves out coming into turns 3 and 4, and Harrington leading by quite a margin, as is Dakota Fripp. The GT class is away, and they are running in single file for the most part. We do have some side-by-side running between Orson Mireles and Anthony Rossamano. Bruno Carnero sticking his nose in there as well. Carnero's going to be looking for some good results, but a nice clean start so far.
Don't speak too soon,
Yeah,
as we see the Lamborghinis going side by side down the back straight here. Carnero has his nose in front, but once again finds himself around the outside. He's feeling brave here. He's going to get that position after a couple corners of trying.
Yeah, it seems that 8, 9, 10 sequence, it's beneficial to be on the outside. As you slow down for the run to turn 10, you kind of want to be on the inside of turn 9. So that worked out very nicely for Bruno Carnero, as lap 1 is complete already. It's a very quick lap here at Indianapolis, and it seems that Dakota Fripp has left the rest of the GT class in the dust. The gap is about a second now already, and very close to breaking the draft. Confirmation from race control that the start is under review in the GT class. They were supposed to go on the iRacing green flag, but Dakota Fripp decided to put the power down a bit early. See how that turns out, but focus our attention back to the prototype class. That's a Geodesic car running very wide, and something has happened there to Tyson Meyer.
And he dropped back from his teammate in Graham Sanders, who is still fighting for the lead with Connor Harrington. So a bit of struggle early there from Quirkatized. I wonder exactly what that was as well, but it does mean he's got Andrew Berry, Hayden Gobert, and Jason Goddard quite promptly behind him. And the draft not so huge on these prototypes, but you have to say around here, and once they get into 6th gear, you'd notice it is actually going to be hard for Harrington to shake Sanders and for Meyer to shake Berry. Berry shake. But yes, there is Barney, whose green flag was potentially disobeyed in the GT field. We'll wait to hear some news about that. But in the present, Connor Harrington is up to speed, and so too is Graham Sanders. 1:17 to get us going. Is that indicative of them backing it up just a little bit in the early goings to see what the fuel does?
I would think so, and also the tyres as well. The tyres will need a lap or two to get to their maximum operating window. I did notice coming into turn 1 there, Andrew Berry lifting off massively behind Quirkatized. Here's a battle in the GT class. Mark Noski and Aaron Ackles driving the two Lamborghinis. I think the fuel saving might... there might not be a huge amount of fuel saving in the GT class, considering that they already have that reduced fuel tank capacity, but I think the prototypes would definitely consider it, at least to stymie any banzai braking moves into the first turn. Let's see what the Quasar versus Geodesic Lamborghini battle can bring. It's on for third as well in the GT class as well, because Corey McLemore has got Tristan Iglesias right behind him, and the teammates at Frozen Speed, Tristan Iglesias and Spencer Kostovich, the Full Send Racing crew, They're running quite well there in 4th and 5th, and this is the gap for the lead of the prototypes. Half a
Big
second
news.
between Harrington and Sanders. Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness.
That is a drive-through penalty for Dakota Fripp for disobeying Barney and jumping the start. It's going to have to be served pretty soon. That is going to put him deep in the pack. And I think that's even more punishing than if you just added, 20 seconds after the race or something. That is a drive-through penalty, which is a significant penalty. But then, this early in the race, you put him very, very much on the back foot.
That's a big shame there for Dakota Fripp, and it means that someone else has a chance of winning in the GT class today, but won't speak too soon. We know how skilled Dakota Fripp is wheeling this car around. Might be able to make something resembling a recovery in the later stages of this race, but we'll wait and see.
Does that have an implication on the Gentleman's Championship?
I don't know. I don't think so, because
you kind of feel like it should.
Yeah, you do feel like it should, but I think with the Gentleman's Championship being determined by number of incidents, unfortunately, that doesn't come into play. Johan Boyson, meanwhile, in the draft.
Yeah.
Look at that.
The biggest fuel tank of anyone in GT3, it's scientifically proved. He's sailed a little deep into turn 1, and that's going to put him under pressure, but he's looking like he's thinking about the fuel. They're going to go side by side behind there as well, because Noska and Ackles cannot stay apart in their Lamborghinis.
Absolutely, they cannot, and it looks like, oh no, Ackles running wide there. That's easy to do coming into turn 4. You got to be very careful. It's very much a one-line affair. Oh no, Ackles getting into the grass and taking Daniel Towell with him. That's a huge shame for those drivers. Towell was running quite well, but you dip one wheel into the grass in that first sector, and that's what happens. We'll go to the Omologato replay for another angle of that. Unfortunate there for Ackles. He wanted to try and recover, and Towell was just minding his own business there as Ackles goes wide and the rear end breaks free directly into the side of the BMW. Both of those drivers going to have to start making a recovery drive from here, and it looks like Dakota Fripp has come into the pits for his drive-through penalty. The rest of the GT field scything on by at full speed, and this is going to be very frustrating for Dakota. That promotes John Botifer to the lead, which means now Corey McLemore there in second could get a win for Team Tortuga. At least that's a possibility. They got to think about the full send Lamborghinis behind. They've certainly shown themselves to be competitive at previous rounds.
Scary flying in formation, aren't they? There is Fripp rejoining the race. Challenging little pit exit here, different to the one I'm used to. We've got to go around the curb at turn 1, but he is all the way back in 16th. Comes a move for 5th and 6th. Jason Gotter is going to get down the inside of Hayden Gober.
Oh no.
Because Tyson Meyer is off. They get another position.
Oh no. That's another error there for Tyson Meyer. Manages to get going, but we'll see what happened to him. Might have been a spin coming out of turn 1. Very difficult to line up the car through here. Just going over the bump, he went a bit too hard into turn 1 and got onto the grass, and that's all she wrote for that one. There's a bump right in the middle of turn 1 that can certainly send you wide, so Tyson Meyer back to last place in the prototype class. Meanwhile, in the GTs, there's been a swap for position between the two full-send Lamborghinis. Spencer Kostovic is now in 3rd place behind this battling pair for the lead. Botifer showing no sign of yielding to Corey McLemore just yet.
Or is that McLemore showing no sign of wanting to get around his draft buddy?
Yeah, that's another possibility, but with that position swap, of the two Lamborghinis. Getting the feeling that Spencer Kostovich might start mounting an attack soon. Mr. Fripp, meanwhile, out on track by himself. Have a look at that train for the lead in the GTs. We've got Geodesic cars bookending the top 5 here. And on board with Kostovich, you can see just how precise you have to be in that middle sector of the circuit, putting barely any angle on the wheel at all to get through those corners. And here is the draft. Let's see how powerful it is here, how much they might fuel save coming into the braking zone for turn 1. And Fripp starting to encounter some prototype traffic there. That's Harrington and Sanders, your battling pair for the lead in LMP2, and looks like Sanders trying to line up a move there as there was no change in the GT class, and big defensive move there from Connor Harrington. Side by side into turn 1 between the two of them. Sanders staying pretty even on brakes. Connor Harrington not yielding, not letting him go. Slight oversteer for the leader as well. He's really getting harassed at the moment, and with this traffic, oh no, it's John Sedlak. They go around him, pincer move him. And the traffic is going to be quite an issue here in the first sector. It's very much a one-line affair for the most part. You've got to be careful where you place your car.
Yeah, for sure. They're in a pretty low drag setup, these prototypes, so they're good in a straight line to get around the GT cars. Very easily done on the pit straight, far more challenging through these bits here, and you can see that they're not far behind the lead battling GTs as we ride on board with the BMW of Micklemore. He is surrounded by Lamborghinis at the moment. He's very, very happy to just stay behind John Botifer for the moment. Looks like it's going to continue. So how early he rolls out of full throttle and then how early he's going to roll out of the throttle full stop is going to invite Kostovich.
There we go, and Kostovich up the inside of turn 1 makes it side by side there with Corey McLemore and completes the move around the outside of turn 2, and it looks like his teammate's going to follow him through there. So with McLemore knocked offline in turn 1, that destroyed his rhythm for the next few turns, allowing the two full send Lamborghinis to get by, and not far behind them, the lead battle for LMP2, just 0.2 of a second between Harrington and Sanders. The race is almost 15 minutes in, and the prototype class will be noticing their fuel levels going down. It'll be about half an hour until we expect our first prototypes into the pits, but they've got a very long line of GTs ahead of them in this sector of the circuit.
Yeah, youch. Particularly that left-hander there where you're not going to get too wide with anyone there. And then compromises the run a little bit for Connor Harrington. Graham Sanders is right there, and with a stronger run now, they go one way, go low, go high, pick their way through the traffic. They've got to go from road course strats to oval strats on that one.
Yeah, they certainly do. Have to swap lines again, coming across the start-finish line, making their way past Johan Boyson. They've got some little bit of clear air ahead of them, and now they're behind the top 5 in GT at the moment, making their way past Bo Rigger. Forced to go around the outside is Connor Harrington, and Graham Sanders having to do the same, almost getting into the grass as they make their way past the GTs. Oh no, there we go. That's a big hit there for one of the full send Lamborghinis. That's the 103 of Tristan Iglesias. He was in 3rd place. And I think Race Control's going to be having a good look at that. Iglesias making his displeasure known on the InSim text channel. Let's get an Omologato replay and see how that happened.
Looking backwards from Iglesias.
Yeah, oh man. Looks like there just wasn't enough space there for Harrington to get by, and it turned into quite a big hit there for Iglesias. On board with Harrington, you see that Iglesias stayed in the middle of the road coming into turn 6. He obviously saw Harrington coming and was trying to figure out what to do.
Well, he was
Harrington.
also looking forward at them going side by side for the GT3 lead, which they're going to do once again. So a lot going on for him. He's looking at his teammate going too wide for the lead. He was maybe defending a little bit, and the prototypes were coming through as well. So it was all going on, which is probably why it wasn't a good idea to try to dive down the inside when there wasn't a car with.
Yeah, of course. But when you're in the heat of a lead battle, as Harrington and Sanders are, sometimes you can get a little bit impatient making your way through a big glut of GT cars. What that has done is it's put a bit of a cloud over Connor Harrington's head. Race Control would have looked at that, and we'll see if they make a decision on whether to penalise him for it. Lead battle, though, continuing in both classes. We're seeing quite a competitive field today, which is great to see.
Imagine both of our pole sitters get penalised.
Well, they have.
Yeah, there we go.
They have.
Wow.
There goes Connor Harrington into the pits for a drive-through penalty. Smacking Tristan Iglesias off the circuit in Sector 1. That's what happens. And so
I would have waited a lap or two, because now he's going to come out of the drive-through right behind the entire GT train again. If he'd gone, I don't know, if he'd gone like one lap more before serving it, he probably wouldn't be behind the entire GT train once again.
Yeah, he's going to have to work his way through all of these cars again, making his way out of pit lane now. And yeah, all of that hard work that he had just been doing in that lead battle has been negated. And, well, it's going to be a tough job for Connor Harrington to win from now on. And, well, that's an awkward meeting in the same spot where the contact was made, making his way past Tristan Iglesias in the Lamborghini. So maybe a little wave sorry from Connor Harrington there.
Well, I didn't catch all of the driver and race control communication. That's not how what I imagined was the hand signal being made out the window.
Well, we'll see what the debrief is like after the race. Here's 7th and 8th in GT, Orson Mireles and Bruno Carnero. And they're working very hard to keep themselves in with a chance here. Carnero getting in the draft of the BMW. Tyson Meyer just making his way past them there in the prototype, and this could be a move down at turn 1. Carnero makes it side by side across the start-finish line. There might be a slight bit of side draft down this straight, but it's not a huge amount, as you can see. But the move is made there as Harrington makes his way past them. Carnero runs a bit wide, though, out of turn 1. Does not give the opportunity to Mireles, though. There's already a bunch of marbles down there at turn 2, so you do not want to be off the racing line there.
Certainly how it looks. So the train's starting to get chopped up a little bit in GT. That big draft on the pit straight was doing a lot to keep them all together. Still ever so close for the lead of the race. Go to that. Botifa still leading. 1 full send instead of 2 in his mirrors now. It's Kostovic who is monstering him. I think Mecklemore in 3rd. Quite a good job still hitting his presumed fuel numbers.
Yeah, certainly seems that way. We look back from the rear wing of Botifa. They've got Connor Harrington coming through on them there. And Harrington having to go to the outside in the penultimate turn. There's not much of a margin there to change your line with the differential of speed there. But both angles here of the lead battle, Kostovic in the draft. And he is still quite a way back. The draft not hugely effective, but he might be lifting off a bit earlier into turn 1 as well. It's still quite close for that top 5. Johan Boyson has been promoted into P5, and Zach Plummer's not too far behind him either. Zach Plummer, the privateer in the Lamborghini, he was looking for a good result at Silverstone, but unfortunately I think it was Connor Harrington that made contact with him at Stowe Corner last round. So Plummer in P6 is looking for a redemption, a good result here today.
That'll be the aim. He's doing well so far. If you can still see the leader just up the road in the train from you, you just want to hook your wagon to the train, stay with it. He's doing a good job of that. Certainly helped by the fact that it looks like the two Tortuga cars in the top 6 here aren't fighting particularly hard. They are playing the long game for sure, it looks like. Full Send guys were a bit more aggressive, and I think the two Geodesic cars in the top 6 are sort of there somewhere in between.
Yeah, it's a battle of the teams in the GT class for sure. Well, Andrew Berry and Jason Goddard promoted to the podium positions as, oh my goodness, there goes Spencer Kostowicz round the outside of turn 1 to take the lead. That was quite the draft down into turn 1 that he got, and securing himself on the inside of turn 2 secured it for him. So Full Send back into the lead, and with Dakota Fripp out of the picture for now, this is the best opportunity they've ever had to get a win and put a dent in his championship lead.
Yeah, for sure. Dakota Fripp back in 12th, but I'll keep an eye on what his progress looks like. I think he's the fastest GT3 on track right now. Just 13 seconds adrift of the lead.
Yeah, looking like it. We're on board with Fripp here. He's got a Geodesic Lamborghini just up ahead of him here.
Nope.
No, sorry. My apologies. That's a replay of Kostowicz making the move coming into turn 1. And you could see the draft worked out very nicely for him there. Hold on around the outside, hook it on the curb, and away you go. Lead in GT for you. Let's see then here. Kostowicz having to go defensive into turn 1. He knows that John Botifer is very even with him on pace, and the draft will work every single time. Compromised exit from turn 2 just a little bit. Botifer had to back out there.
I was in my head trying to run some of the numbers on how Dakota Fripp had a 31-second lane time with the drive-through penalty and is only 12.5 seconds off the lead. But of course, it is a very rapid pit road speed here. It's 90 kilometers an hour pit lane speed. Really lets the motor on down that very, very wide, very generous pit lane that you've got here. So these drive-through penalties, I think, more costly at some other tracks than here, which was, I guess, a little bit of a surprise to me, because you imagine that the delta between pit lane speed and cars at full pace on the main straight to be quite big, because it's such a fast main straight. But no, I think pit stops actually aren't going to be that costly here, which means I wouldn't rule out a competitive two-stop strategy in GT here. I don't think one stopping this is the be-all and end-all if the lane delta is, only 13, 14 seconds.
Yeah, certainly opens up the strategy somewhat. There's Tyson Meyer in the pits, meanwhile, in the prototype class. And do I see a little bit of damage on one of his fenders? I thought I could see it from the front, but not quite sure. And he's actually out of the car, so not too sure what's going on there for Tyson. I'm gonna go back and check. He has just pulled it into the pits. It doesn't look like there's been any incidents out on track with him, so might be another issue Tyson Meyer's suffering from there.
Still 6 cars that you can't separate in the lead of GT, and there is just 5 cars total in prototype running. There's 2 of them now battling over a podium. Goddard and Gobot have swapped this position a couple times, and this is the most recent occasion.
Certainly is. Gotta going up the inside into turn 1. And they look like they're having a good amount of fun there, battling for the final position on the podium in the prototype class. They haven't got much to lose because Connor Harrington, well, he's coming up on them quite quickly. He's actually just behind them, but with the differential in pace, he might not give them too much trouble. We'll have to wait and see. If they're battling as hard as they are, Harrington might have a bit of trouble. But here for the podium in GT, Bo Rigger pressuring Corey McLemore. Rigger's made his way past Boyson in the last couple of laps and looking to try and vault himself forward in the Ferrari. And you see how open the entry is into turns 8 and 9. If you can get on the outside of someone into there, then you're pretty much guaranteed a move coming into turn 10, the tight left-hander. And you see how much curb they can actually take in turn 11 as well. There's no off-track if you cut the corner just a little bit, but you got to be careful how your car rides the bumps as well. This track would generally require a stiff car. It's very smooth, very flat. Some medium speed long corners. You see almost hitting the rev limiter there, Bo Rigger, on the run into turn 1. Lost a bit of time to Corey McLemore in the draft of John Botifer. And with Tyson Meyer disconnecting from the server, I think that's his night done. Iglesias comes into the pits.
Someone check if iRacing is even still installed on Tyson Meyer's computer.
Apparently we're hearing that his setup was too loose and he couldn't drive it properly. That's another thing you have to consider around here. You do need a car that has a good amount of turn on it with these very flat corners, but you don't want one that's too loose, because especially you see Connor Harrington struggling there with the rear end. In the first sector here where you're turning constantly, you want a car that's stable. And these guys coming up on traffic. Harrington getting up the inside of Goba ever so briefly, and that's going to be the move potentially. See if he goes round the outside of Goba into turn 8. Goba's going to yield there on the inside as they make their way through the traffic. And Jason Goddard getting a little bit of an advantage there with his Genesis teammate in the GTs, Nick McLaughlin, holding both of these guys up. Connor Harrington makes his way through. Hayden Goba makes his way through, and the battle will continue. Question is now, will they work together to try and get up to the back of Jason Gotter, or with Harrington's pace, is he going to pull away? He's certainly not going to pull away here because the draft is huge for Hayden Goba. He's not going to make a move, though.
The high speed we saw in qualifying, 302 kilometers an hour. The high speed we've just seen, 311 from Gotter, 310 from Harrington.
Harrington. Oh, no. There we go. Harrington had to get on the anchors because David Browning was in front of him, and unfortunately, Hayden Goba cleaned him up there in the slide. So our pole man with further issues, and Harrington is going quite slowly to get going. Omologato replay then as they come into Sector 1. This is exactly what I was talking about, David. Here in the first sector, unfortunately, Harrington had to get on the anchors and tipped into a slide. That's what traffic can do.
Yeah, and we saw on the onboard quite a bit of wheel work as he negotiated some of the corners. Very much a pointy car that he'd been driving. It caused me to look at the weather for today. Sort of moderate, a bit so-so. 30 degrees Celsius on the track temp. That's not super slippery. I mean, it's not world record pace weather.
Oh no,
Carnero.
again!
Same corner.
Yeah, Bruno Carnero, who we saw making a great job of working his way up the positions. Again, the run into turn 4. I mean, you're already turning, having come out of turn 3. So when you get on the brakes, you've got to be careful that the rear end doesn't break free. And Carnero has escaped back to the pits and disconnected from the server. And there is Connor Harrington in the pits to get his damage repaired from that incident with Hayden Gober. Goodness me. We're just seeing things going wrong for drivers in this field as we have come up on half an hour's racing completed, 1 hour to go. Tristan Iglesias, who was one of the first drivers to come a cropper, down in 18th in GT at the moment. And all alone on the circuit. He's going to have to start thinking about how he can warp his strategy to get himself back onto a potentially good position. As Spencer Kostovic's lead has extended in the last few laps, it's now a battle for second, with John Botifer holding back Macklemore, Rigger, Boyson, and Plummer.
Kostovic had been breaking the slipstream on the pit straight as well, trying that several laps in a row, trying to break away from Botifer and the others. It worked, but what cost, you wonder? It's very obvious the lengths that the Tortuga guys are going to save fuel, and they're round about the same pace here as the two Geodesic cars you can see, so maybe they are aiming for the same strategy. We don't know just yet, but that Quasar car had a bit of damage on the nose. Did it at the start of this replay?
I think it did. Aaron Ackles has suffered a couple of issues already in this race, but this is him making a move here on Daniel Towell, I believe, in the BMW. And that was for 15th in GT. Very nice move down at the first turn. It seems even with that damage on the front, that Lamborghini is still nice and slippery in a straight line.
Damage is less than on the BMW. This is Connor Harrington still in the pit lane after 2 minutes, which of course has seen him drop off the lead lap.
He's out of the car, I believe. So that might be another one dropped from Prototype, our pole sitter. That's a big shame. I was really looking forward to seeing if Harrington could pull off the victory that he's been threatening, but not so for now. Graham Sanders is unchallenged for the lead in Prototype at the moment. So one of the closest battles on track right now is this one, the battle for second in GT. And Bo Rigger will want to join his Geodesic teammate up at the front of this train. But Corey McLemore has been quite consistent this race so far. Put himself in that position and stayed there, fended off any advances, while still keeping himself well in the draft of John Botifer.
Exciting little pack we've got here, waiting for the strategy to brew, waiting to see who has to pit before 45 minutes to go, which actually doesn't feel that far away now, does it?
No, only 11 minutes.
I don't think we've seen anyone make a scheduled pit stop yet either in GT. The only people who have pitted is retirements and Iglesias, who got the damage early and then pitted early, and Dakota Fripp, of course, who didn't really pit as much as just served the drive-through penalty. So everyone who's on plan, on strategy, is still out there with 10, 11-ish minutes to the halfway point of this race.
Yeah, it's turning into a bit of a race of attrition here in the first half.
Well, I was going to say, do you think there's going to be anyone who finishes in Prototype and doesn't stand on the podium? Because we're only one retirement away from it becoming a participation award class.
Yeah, true.
To take nothing away from anyone who obviously gets a clean car to the finish in this race, because we've seen that the traffic comes around more often in some difficult places, and the GT field has stayed very well packed together, which has made it difficult for the prototypes to lap them, which they've had to do every 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, it's been a tough run for the prototypes here tonight. I think with Hayden Gober quite a ways behind Jason Gotter, I don't know if that battle is going to re-emerge at some point unless Gotter makes a mistake or Gober is very lucky with traffic. But we aren't that far away from just having 3 prototypes running. I certainly hope, my fingers are crossed, that we see our 4 remaining prototypes all make it to the finish. The downside, of course, is that we don't really have any battling in that class at the moment. It's all going to come down to fuel usage, timing of pit stops, etc. Dakota Fripp, we will check back in on. He's made it back into the top 10 in the GT class and starting to come up on the back of this battle for 7th place forward. That's Anthony Rossimano and Orson Meireles up ahead of him there. And Fripp is really making tracks, setting a 25.265 on the last lap versus mid 1 minute 26s for the 2 cars ahead of him. So Fripp has lost none of his pace here. He's just got his head down and focused on recovering from that penalty.
Yep, once again, fastest GT3 on track, and instead of being 13.5 seconds behind the leader, he's 12 seconds behind the leader, Spencer Kostovich. Still quite a few cars and some other surprises in the tail between him and the lead, but he's been gnawing away at it, definitely bringing himself back into contention for a podium.
Yes, well, can he make it to the podium by the end? It's certainly possible. Speaking of podium places, Botifer in second has been left for dead by Spencer Kostovich. The gap there in that battle a bit too large to recover. As you see, the rate Dakota Fripp is catching these guys up. It's nearly a full second back this time last lap, but right on the rear now of Anthony Rossimano. And this could be a move down the front straight. It's all flat out from here through the final 2 turns of the road course.
He really set that one up as well, because as you see those guys going for the pit lane, interestingly. He was setting up to make the move because he got all the way to the left-hand side of the circuit for the right-hander that feeds onto the straight, whereas the normal racing line wouldn't see you open the corner up that far. But there is a run on pit lane amongst the GT3 field. Bo Rigger from right up the pointy end. Orson Meireles, Anthony Rossimano, Jordan Fisher on the lane right now, and I suspect we're going to see a couple more in laps to come. And interestingly, it's Corey McLemore also getting a little bit more aggressive and getting ahead of John Botifer.
Yeah, all right. Well, that might have been a strategic move there for Corey, because he'll know that the pit stops are coming up soon and try and get ahead of John Botifer before that time comes around. Let's have a look at the pass in a moment. But there's Rigger coming out of the pits and in some nice clear air. It looks to me like Botifer actually ran wide coming into turn 4, which is the reason why Corey McLemore managed to make his way past. And there goes Botifer into the pits. McLemore staying out. So Botifer knows, well, I've lost the position now. Might as well jump on into the pits and see if I can undercut him further down the line. Also in is our leader, Spencer Kostovich, down to 3rd as McLemore and Boyson stay out and assume the top 2 positions.
Yeah, not a surprise to see the Tortuga guys carry on. The question is how much longer they carry on. Turn 4, bit of a bogey spot. Very slippery there, it seems. that wasn't even understeer. That was him catching the oversteer. And in doing so, in enacting the save, going quite a bit wide, losing a little bit of time. So the rear was loose on the way into turn 4.
Seems like the BMWs are having some of the best times in that first sector with their front engine layout as Zach Plummer brings it back out in the privateer Lamborghini. And Plummer's actually beaten Spencer Kostovich out of the pit lane, which is interesting to see. And Botifer as well. Very short pit stop, and Bo Rigger has gained quite a bit of time too. Dakota Fripp also pitting. So there's been quite a bit of a shake-up here in the GT class, and Fripp comes out just ahead of Anthony Rossimano.
I think we've seen Zach Plummer take his short splash early, and in not too long he'll be on for the full pit stop. Macklemore and Boyson, well short of the halfway mark, coming in together, but they'll also be hoping for some quick stops between now and the end.
Yeah, Zach Plummer's pit stop was only 10.3 seconds. The next quickest pit stop was 19.6 from Tristan Iglesias. As the BMWs come to a stop in pit lane, let's see what Zach Plummer can do here. If those BMWs come out level with him, Mr. Plummer really making a statement here. He wants to try and win this thing. And makes his way well and truly past everyone. So it looks like Macklemore and Boyson out of their boxes now and back onto the track. So that's Zach Plummer into the lead of the GT class. And oh no, mistake there for John Botifer. Massively overshot turn 1. And he's going to have to take a few moments there to get back onto the circuit. Oh, poor John. He's losing so much time there, just sitting still in the runoff area at turn 1. Dakota Fripp is going to get another free position out of that one.
Sure is. He overshot that big time. He was going for the right-hand turning oval or something.
That's Graham Sanders, our prototype leader in the pits, and he's all on his lonesome on track at the moment. That's second and third, Gotta and Berry. Quite a way behind, I'd say about a third of a lap or thereabouts. Let's see if they decide to bring it into the pits. It looks like Andrew Berry is going to stay out there and Gotta going for the pit lane. Very difficult to slow it up there. You see he locked the brakes on pit entry. I'm wondering if that was speeding on pit road. Certainly on the way there for Jason Gotta. So he might have lost a bunch more time there if he gets a penalty for that.
The charge forward continues from Dakota Fripp. He recovers from the early drive-through penalty. Overcut a position or two in the pit lane. Now, out on track, the work continues.
Indeed it does, up the inside for turn 1 and just kissing the curb, and a nicely done move there. Back up into 6th for Dakota Fripp, and Mireles, I think, saw him coming, noted the pace of that Audi. Just electing to stay out of trouble. So Jason Gotta is still in the pits there. 34-second stop for him. And it looks like no penalty for speeding in pit lane, despite that rather aggressive entry. So Jason Gotta getting away with it there.
I've sped on pit lane here.
Yes, you have indeed. In real life, to
In my
boot.
defense, that car had no speedo. And I don't even know how fast 35 miles an hour is.
Yes.
It's like try to do 35 miles an hour. I don't know how fast that is.
Yeah, we don't use freedom units in our part of the world. As we check back in on the fight for 7th and 8th, Tristan Iglesias working his way back up after the earlier incident with Connor Harrington. And well in the draft now of Orson Mireles. I got to say that Miralles has been very good in this race as well. Doesn't have a scratch on that BMW, and despite starting very far back in the GT field, he's managed to stay out of trouble, work his way up position by position, take advantage of other people's mistakes. Yes, the guys that have suffered bad luck are coming back up and passing him now, but I think this puts Orson Miralles in a pretty good stead for the last half hour of the race if he can keep this up.
Yeah, and he's got some drivers around him at the moment who ought to be pretty consistent as well. Nothing crazy going on. Tell you what is interesting though is that Andrew Berry is on the pit lane, a freckle and a hair past the halfway point of the race. Same true for Hayden Gober. So Graham Sanders, I think, of the drivers remaining, the fastest lap times in the prototype, but there's two drivers who kind of have him a little beat on strategy at the moment if they can keep going consistently.
Indeed, Andrew Berry and Hayden Gober would certainly put themselves in here with a shot at taking victory in those beautiful green and silver prototypes. They both pit at the same time. And they've obviously done enough to have a go at the one stop, as Miralles continues to defend from Iglesias. Dakota Fripp, you can see, really dropping them now. Again, the pace in that Audi is a brief look there from Mr. Iglesias. Oh, I'm wondering if Berry has had a speeding. No, he hasn't. Berry has had a long stop. The car was on the jacks. He took tyres. And it looks like both Action Sim Sport prototypes have taken tyres.
They'd really, really have to know something we don't.
Yeah, I would think tyres just aren't necessary in a 90-minute race like this. I'm not sure what they've got planned, but either way, I think that's equaled out the advantage that they would have gained by only doing a one stop. We'll see what happens in the future in this fourth round of the Geodesic Omologato Championship. Can Miralles keep Iglesias behind? What can the Action SimSport prototypes do as Hayden Gober is still stopped in the pits for some reason? The prototype class turning out to be a race of attrition. Gober's just out of the pits. We're going to go to a quick break here on SimSpeed TV. You're watching the Geodesic Omologato Championship. We'll be back very shortly.
Fortunes of many will change during the night. But already 12 have dropped out. But it's not so bad when you're the first car through like Paddy Hopko. And here's his main rival, Constein, in an Alfa. Standard has been driven flat out from the word go, but it's still got plenty of steam.
Siamo quasi arrivati? Ancora 1 chilometro.
You're watching the Geodesic Omologato Championship Round 4 from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Don't forget, thanks to series sponsor Omologato, you shop on their website and use the code SPEED2021 at checkout and you receive a free silicone wristband. And of course, we are highlighting 2 watches from Omologato for this round. This is the Indianapolis Chronograph. They also have the Indianapolis Automatic, 2 brilliant timepieces from Omologato. motorsport-inspired watches. Speed 2021 at checkout. Receive a free silicone band. You'll be supporting this championship. You'll be supporting us here at SimSpeed TV, and you will be supporting Omologato. So with 40 minutes to go in this race, we've seen the pit stops start to come into effect in both classes. The Action Sim Sport prototypes of of Andrew Berry and Hayden Gober taking tyres in their pit stop, which we certainly didn't think was the optimal strategy. We'll have to wait and see how they go in their challenge against Graham Sanders. But here, Orson Mireles and Tristan Iglesias continue to do battle. And Iglesias can have to be careful of that prototype behind. I think that is Hayden Gober just behind him. I'm Rhys Gardiner, David Haynes alongside me in the commentary box. David, the that pit stop with the two Action prototypes, Hayden Gober has spent quite a bit longer in the pits, and he's nearly a full lap behind his teammate now, which I think is going to be quite disappointing for him.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me on that one. Was he speeding on pit lane and then also took tyres? Because that was a very, very long stop. More than a minute longer than Graham Sanders and Jason Gotter in first and second for Hayden Gober, unfortunately.
And Andrew Berry wasn't much faster thanks to taking tyres in his stop. 56 seconds he was spent at a standstill in the lane. So now these guys are just going to have to run their You're watching the Geodesic Omologato Championship. We'd like to apologise for the technical issues that we've just seen. Unfortunately, our director's power went out, and unfortunately, we've had to restart the stream as a result. But the race does continue. We're just waiting on getting back into the session to bring you live pictures.
Come on, Reese, bring that radio experience.
Yeah, radio experience. Well, Spencer Kostovich back into the lead in GT. Graham Sanders is still dominating the prototype class at the moment. In terms of Zach Plummer, well, just before the stream went down, we were talking about him taking his second pit stop, and he has fallen back somewhat to just outside the top 10 in the GT class, or just on the verge of it. So we'll wait and see when the rest of the GT class comes in for their second pit stop, how that all works out. But as it stands, I think we might see Zach Plummer gain a position or two more before the finish.
Yeah, he's certainly in a good spot if he's made his final pit stop and he's running 10th right now. He's running 10th, and everyone in front of him still needs a pit stop. So it's going to be a short stop, just a splash of fuel for all of those other guys, but Plummer definitely, he wouldn't count his chickens before they hatch, but he's looking good for a top 10 for sure. If everyone ahead of him still requires one more stop in prototype. It's also a little split with Berry and Gober, we think, getting to the end. Sanders and Gotter still needing one more pit stop. I think Graham Sanders has a very comfortable 50-second lead. It's Jason Gotter versus Andrew Berry for second that's kind of getting interesting, where we think Gotter is going to need a splash, and he's only 15 seconds up the road from Berry, who could probably get to the end from here. And then the question is, who's been saving a lot of fuel early goings in GT and are then going to maybe save, 5 less seconds on pit lane at this final stop? If Mecklemore can do it from second, he could jump Kostovich for the lead. If Boyson can go 3-4 seconds shorter on the pit stop from fourth, he'll definitely jump Bo Rigger, and we could see a double team Tortuga podium. So with final pit stops coming up for both classes, there are questions still to be answered, and therefore some great racing still to be had. We're not far away from bringing you back the live pictures.
Yeah, I would certainly expect Johan Boyson to work some fuel magic. He certainly did that in the McLaren last season, and he's shown that he can do it in the BMW as well. We also want to give a brief shout out to Geodesic Racing on Twitter. They've got a promotion going. If you want to visit them on Twitter at Geodesic Racing, they got some Team Omologato swag to give away. If you like their tweet and you tag the Omologato and Connections global accounts, you'll go in the draw to win an Omologato shirt and cap, and the winner will be announced next week. So make sure to jump on Twitter and get some engagement going, as we are back with live pictures and Bo Rigger going for his second pit stop in the Geodesic Ferrari. Dakota Fripp back up into 4th place for the moment.
Yeah, and hunting Boyson for 3rd. Still one more pit stop from both of these guys, but I think I haven't seen any sign of fuel saving out of Dakota Fripp. Meanwhile, we know Boyson has been very economical indeed. What will the gap look like when they make their final stops? But for the moment, Fripp is going to try to grab one position and get scored in a podium position again.
Boyson moving over very quickly to the optimum line for turns 8, 9, and 10. Maybe trying to break the ever so slight draft that Dakota Fripp would have gotten down that straight. It's a very close battle between these two, and I mean, Fripp has certainly shown that he's got the pace, and I think Boyson struggling with
Boyson's
a rhythm in
for
that
a toe.
section.
That's what's happening.
Yeah. And the toe has been got for Johan Boyson. All right, let's listen in. Let's see how early he gets off the throttle. Very, else so it seems. So the fuel save is on for Team Tortuga once again. Where will we see them at the end? We've only got half an hour to go.
And the Fripp update is he's 9.8 seconds behind Kostovic now. Down from 13, 14 or so. No doubt the pace that broke him away in the lead initially is bringing him back into frame after that drive-through penalty for a jump start.
Now, Spencer Kostovic still has yet to come in for his second stop. We'll be monitoring him.
What about Rigger and Plummer, though? Because Rigger resumed in the race, right ahead of Zach Plummer. The two drivers we got in our top 10, who we know have made their final stop. And that's good for Plummer if he's that close to Rigger, who was that close to the lead.
Yes, indeed. Rigger, of course, part of that top 5 in GT pack that we saw at the start as Botifer going for the move on Orson Mireles, coming down into turn 1. The draft very strong. But a little bit of fuel saving still going on between those two as Botifer nearly going a bit wide in turn 1. Very difficult to pull up. And Anthony Rossamano also looking for an extra position here. Sitting just outside the top 10 in GT.
Yeah, also recovery from Botifer after he spent what would have felt like a lifetime. Parked in the runner for turn 1, looking for a gap to get going into. With our prototypes doing 80-second lap times, and the GT's really not that far behind here. Well, there was plenty of traffic to wait on for him at turn 1, and it cost him a lot and cost him dearly.
Have a look at how much Dakota Fripper's dropped Johan Boyson there. We just saw them looking down the straight. That gap has really increased. There's Fripp and there's Boyson. I mean, they were line astern just a couple of laps ago, but it seems like Dakota Fripp has really turned up the wick. Even more so than we usually see.
Yeah, for sure, he's motoring. You don't need me to tell you that he's still the fastest car in class out on track, but it was only 1/10 of a second faster than Kostovic on the last lap.
It's just a waiting game now, isn't it? Waiting to see whether any GTs have pulled off a surprise fuel save and one-stop strategy, which we think is certainly unlikely, considering the fuel tank capacity reduced from 65 to 60% for this round. So you'd think that every car in the GT class would be guaranteed 2 pit stops, but of the GT cars still running, we've only seen 3 of them go for 2 pit stops so far. Just waiting on some splash and dashes in the final 20 minutes. We got to remember Zach Plummer going for the short fill in his first stop. That we think is mirroring what everyone else is going to do up the front. Everyone else just waiting for the final part of the race to go for the splash and dash and take it to the end.
Yeah, so the first stop for Plummer was 10 seconds of fuel, and then the second stop was 26 seconds of fuel, whereas everyone else went about 26 seconds of fuel on their first stop, leading you to suggest somewhere between 10 and 12 seconds of fuel at the final stop for the drivers we look at here, Rossimano and everyone forward of him included in that as well. Big deviation from that is what could really shake this up if someone like a Macklemore or a Boyson or a Botifer somehow only needs 7 seconds of fuel to get to the end, and it manages to jump them the couple of seconds that span the gaps in that class as they run.
Well, the waiting game continues as all these drivers try their best.
I'll tell you what I've been watching though is the gap for second and third closing in prototype, where Jason Goddard has been soft pedaling a little bit potentially, and Andrew Berry has been flying along and brought the gap down from, I can't remember what it was, 18 seconds or something. It's about 12 now, and continuing to shrink a little as well. So fingers crossed for a prototype battle.
Yeah, fingers crossed indeed. What you're seeing, what you just saw there was Jason Goddard with Hayden Gober up behind him. Gober in 4th place has been lapped by Jason Goddard, but he's giving him a good hurry up and having to work their way through traffic simultaneously. That explains why the lap times have not been as quick as they would like. Sweeping around the outside. That's one of the few places you could potentially get by cleanly in a prototype in Sector 1. And of course, they haven't done much to spoil that battle between Mireles and Rossimano. They have dropped, John Botifer has dropped them just a little bit, but the battle continues for them. And Andrew Berry's last lap, a 1 minute 19.039. Jason Goddard, 1:19.653. With that traffic, I think the gap is going to come down even more.
Yeah, there were a couple laps previous where rather than being half a second, it was more like a second, 1.2 seconds. It just seems like when Goddard gets the traffic, he gets the worst end of it, and Berry comes off a little smoother on it.
Certainly seems that way, as there is a potential move, almost.
1.2 seconds
Rossimano.
this lap, as Goddard does a 19.8 and Berry does an 18.6.
Oh, that's going to be spicy towards the end. I certainly hope so. Berry working his way through on the Quasar Lamborghini. Believe that is Ackles that he's just passed. There it is. And there is the battle just up ahead between Rossimano and Mireles. This is going to be pretty easy here for Andrew Berry. He's going to get by both of them on the straight, and that's what you want as a prototype driver. You don't want to be held up in the turns. On a track with some good straight line sections like this, you want to time your passes just so they work out like that.
Yeah, fair bit of it will work out to be luck, but there's still an art to backing it up, leaving, you know, a car length or 2 car lengths between you and the GT car through the bit where you can't pass, so you can then spring into life and speed at the bits where you can pass cars and hope to pick off 1 or 2 or more.
Well, Berry on his lonesome on track at the moment. No draft to help him along, but across the line they would come. 1 minute 19.1 for Berry. 1 minute 19.093 for Jason Goddard. So the gap staying consistent between them on that lap. But now that they both had a bit of clear air, we might be able to see a true indication of their pace. Mireles and Rossimano, meanwhile, still on for the final position in the top 6 in GT. I think Anthony Rossimano and Orson Mireles, two of the biggest movers in this field. A bigger mover is Jordan Fisher, who's running the position behind, gaining what looks like 12 positions. These guys have both done very well to gain 5 or 6 positions from where they started. Staying out of trouble, it's the main thing.
Yeah, to work out the positions gained on my timing screen, I've actually got to subtract the retired prototypes. So from that, would say Mireles up 6, Rossimano up 4, Jordan Fisher up 7. So definitely the bigger movers in class. Looking good for Rossimano right now. Running the short line, the low line on the banking, and he slingshots into life on the pit straight. Get to the inside for turn 1. Look, you got to look down at the Lamborghini from the roof camera on the BMW. You can tell the height difference from the off-board shot. The on-board shot, that really told a story all of its own as they go side by side through 3 corners now.
And 4-2 as Mireles goes for the turn in, leaves Rossimano just enough room on the inside and a bit quicker on the throttle. The corner straightens out there. This would allow Mireles to complete the defense, but certainly Rossimano is not done with this.
Yeah, the camera on the BMW looking down on all the other road users, just like BMW drivers do on the road as well. Easy joke. Got him. Zing.
Zingaroony. But
something indicators, I guess, as well. While we're punching down and reusing stereotypes.
True. Well, I mean, there's no ability to use indicators in iRacing yet, anyway.
Some of the cars have the indicator stalks there, and you can see it, and you can't reach out and grab it.
It's painful.
Especially things like the GT4s or like the Mustang.
Yeah, big beefy indicator stalk on that thing. Dakota Fripp, meanwhile, he's up into 3rd in GT now and starting to close in on Corey McLemore. The gap about 2 seconds between those guys. And, of course, yet to... Dakota Fripp has already made 2 trips in the pits, one of them for a penalty, obviously. I wonder how much time he would potentially lose with a splash and dash in the final 17 minutes, unless he's gone and surprised us again by fuel saving the whole way through and only making it a 1 stop. Again, I
No,
don't
I didn't
see
think
how
so.
anyone can do that.
No, not from where they made their first pit stop. I mean, Fripp pitted the same lap as Kostovic in the lead, which was 1 lap earlier than Macklemore. So I think Macklemore's probably looking for 8 or 9 seconds of fuel. Kostovic and Fripp are probably each looking for about 12.
So that should only be a very short pit stop at the end of it. There goes Mr. Rossimano for his final pit stop. And I think with that, we're going to start seeing the majority of the GT class jump back in for their second pit stops as well. Let's keep an eye out for Dakota Fripp. See if in the next couple of laps he decides to bring it in. But Rossimano's on his own on the pit lane so far. And when we get this pit stop time in, we'll get an idea of how long it's going to take the rest of the GT field.
Jordan Fisher, one of the big movers for the pit stop, but I had to look at it and then double check it. It is 8 p.m. in the evening in session, and it's still this bright. But that is true for Indianapolis because they are very stubbornly in the US East time zone, and very, very far west in that particular time zone means the sun rises late and sets late. And even without the addition of the summertime, which is active in this session, the sun sets very late by the official time in Indianapolis.
Indeed it does. So I don't think we're quite going to be racing into the sunset as I predicted at the start. Still pretty much afternoon out there.
8 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yes.
God.
Something 9 in the afternoon.
Yeah, what a banging track. But yeah, I mean it's not wrong.
No.
The weather's not wrong for the simulated time of year and date and location localized entirely within Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yes, indeed. In terms of, it looks like Orson Mireles has jumped into the pits himself. That's a 12.1 second stop. For Anthony Rossimano, it was an 11.4 second stop. So we can expect some very quick pit stops from our GTs here in the final 15 minutes. Mireles coming out just ahead of Rossimano. The battle continues between these two. They've been fighting each other for a big part of the last half of this race. Unfortunately for Rossimano, despite having the quicker pit stop, either his in-lap, his out-lap, or both, has been unable to put himself ahead of Orson. And there is Dakota Fripp closing in on Corey McLemore. Well and truly within his sights now, as our prototype leader Graham Sanders worked his way through.
Forward from Fripp at Macklemore. And the point I was kind of trying to make about the fuel numbers earlier is, sure, plenty of time left to go, but Fripp getting ahead and into second place isn't enough. He's got to get ahead of Macklemore and then break 3 or 4 extra seconds. The way that this final stop is almost certainly going to be shorter for Macklemore, the way that Tortuga had been saving fuel early.
Yes, indeed. Spencer Kostovic, meanwhile, we're waiting on him to make his final pit stop. Looks like he's not going for it this time round, but we can certainly expect it very soon. McLemore avoids the pits once again as well. That fuel saving early on for Team Tortuga certainly working out in their favour.
First run from the drop of the green flag to their first pit stop, 27 laps for Kostovic, 27 laps for Fripp. They've now just started the 26th lap on this stint. So if they ran the same length this stint as they did last stint, I think that means seeing them in at the end of this lap.
Seems like that's how it should be. Dakota Fripp having a look up the inside of Macklemore at turn 6, and that's the move completed there for him. Caught up to him in Sector 1. And once you sneak up the inside at turn 6, it's very hard for a driver in the same class to respond. I think maybe with that move made, Macklemore might elect to bring it in at the end of this one. We'll see if Dakota Fripp has an ace up his sleeve as Rossimano and Mireles continue to battle here for 8th and 9th. The draft very nice for that Lamborghini. And up the inside for turn 1 again, but we're seeing that these guys push each other very hard. They're level in the braking zone. Rossimano, though, just about slipping ahead there in turn 2, and move completed. Very nicely done.
Yep, smooth, clean is what we like to see. It's Kostovic on the lane, Dakota Fripp on the lane, as Nostra David predicted.
Yes.
And Macklemore continues.
Alrighty. So we can expect at least another lap out of that Team Tortuga BMW. Maybe another 2. We'll have to wait and see. And
I think
cost
we'll
of
go
it.
one more after this.
Righto. Let's keep that in mind. Kostovic is away off the jacks. That was a 9.4 second stop for Spencer. Very quick. Fripp, meanwhile, a 9.6 second stop. Also very quick. So those guys have worked themselves out now. They are good to go to the end for the final 10 minutes. The battle between Berry and Goddard for the podium in Prototype still working towards quite the tense finish here, with 5.6 seconds between these two drivers.
Yeah, from a 15-second gap to a 10-second gap to a 5-second gap. And all that said, I think if he tried, Berry could get to the end, and I'm pretty sure Gotta is going to need one more pit stop. But then the way that Berry's been driving, I think he's headed for another pit stop as well, but a shorter splash than Gotta, which could be critical, given the gap between them is just about 5 seconds.
Well, over the next 10 minutes, we'll finally find out the answers to all of these questions we've been asking. And John Botifer in the pits now as well. And his stop has gone over 12 seconds, 13, 14 seconds in the lane. Coming up to his box now, I will correct myself there.
Yeah, long run till they get to where the pit boxes are at the far end. I can't read tea leaves, but I can read a timing screen. Macklemore and Boyson both continued for an extra lap like I thought they would. And drink tea though.
Yeah, I certainly like a good tipple every now and then. You see just how little space there is either side of the circuit down in that final turn 1 of the speedway. If you're in a very close battle pack with a bunch of cars, you really don't want to be stuck up there on the outside, because if you glance off that wall, get a little bit of damage, that is your speed down the straight completely ruined. As Andrew Berry makes his way past Dakota Fripp, currently in third, the gap still just eking away, chipping away, little by little, lap by lap. We've got a few more cars in the GT class coming in for a stop. Nick McLaughlin and John Sedlak are now down in the pit lane for Genesis SimSport. They've had a pretty quiet one down there in the field. And Corey McLemore, who we should expect in any moment now. Tell you what,
Exactly. Gone very, very long, hasn't he?
yeah, and Dakota Fripp is wasting barely any time after that pit stop of his, setting a 25.943, his first flying lap out. Certainly wants to keep that podium, try and go for the win. And I think even if he doesn't get the win back, I think Dakota Fripp has recovered incredibly well from that penalty for the jump start, as there goes Macklemore into the pits. Very challenging to slow it up while turning for the pit lane. Now, here we go. See how long this takes him. Johan Boysen, his teammate, is going to follow him in. Well, it looks like they are going to lose the lead, because Spencer Kostovich is just coming into the final turn now.
I don't think that they're going to come out ahead of Kostovich and Fripp. I think it's a battle over third, and against Bo Rigger and Zach Plummer, etc. is really their fight. Kostovich is going to come through into the lead. Fripp wasn't far behind, if you recall. Just 7 seconds for Macklemore. Yep. 7 for Boysen.
Well, Macklemore's come out ahead of Fripp. I mean, the fuel saving has worked out brilliantly for Corey there. 7.4 seconds at a standstill. Boysen was even faster. 6.9 second stop for Johan. Again, Team Tortuga, they have the fuel-saving game down pat.
Slow and steady wins the race, is I believe what they said. Unfortunately, I don't think that they're going to win the race today. With the lead Kostovich has got with just a couple laps to go. Certainly, from where they started in 4th and 6th, to be running 2nd and 4th. Looking good.
Certainly. Now, looking at the lap times for Graham Sanders on the last couple of laps, he's starting to drop the pace off a little bit. He's been running 1:18s for the most part, but 1 minute 20.9, 1 minute 21.3 on the last couple of laps. Might he be slowing up a bit in these last 5 minutes to just make sure he gets home on this tank? Remember that he pitted first.
Give us the onboard. How much lift?
Oh, big.
I mean, big, but not big.
Just a little big.
Yeah. Moderate, large. You know, like in cricket, you've got fast bowlers and medium fast bowlers and fast mediums, and but he, I mean, what, 300 meters or something, not a 500, 600 meter roll into turn 1.
I think Sanders is safe. I think he's. I don't think he's going to.
He's got 4 more laps to go, and he's just completed the same number of laps as he did on the first stint. First tank of fuel took him 32 laps. He'd need the second one to take him 36. An extra almost 20 kilometers.
Well, I would think that with the immense lead that he does have, he's got a 49-second lead over Jason Gotter, so he can afford to really back off in these last 4 laps.
You'd have to have really backed it off for the entirety of this stint. We'll see. We're also going to see a battle happen for second and third in GT, and second and third happen in Prototype. Sperry is still getting Gotter, and Fripp is rather predictably eating up the time on Corey Macklemore.
Indeed he is. Could definitely be a second place here for Dakota Fripp. The win is out of reach for the time being. But they're closer than ever for second. And have a look at how late on the brakes Dakota Fripp was. That was a proper lunge on Corey Macklemore. He's going to have to take care in that first sec there. If they make contact, then it's going to be both of their races ruined and possibly another penalty.
Well, Jason Gotter, who pitted the same lap as Graham Sanders, is on the lane with 3 to go.
Okay.
Do you think Sanders can save 3 more laps than Jason Gotter did?
Yeah, I think I might have to take back what I said before.
I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not impossible, but
it's just a huge change of tack from his first stint to his second stint.
Yeah, looking a bit unlikely. Let's see how long Jason Gotta spends in the pits. That was a very quick stop there for Gotta, only 5.5 seconds. So, if Sanders
could
needs...
pit, he'd still come out ahead of Berry.
Oh, yeah.
Comfortably, so.
Absolutely he would. As there is the move for second in GT. Fripp completing it there on Macklemore. It was a good draft down the front straight there for the Audi. And now Fripp just needs to turn eyes forward, and away he'll go into the oncoming sunset. Spencer Kostovich, though, will have a margarita in his hand, undoubtedly, because this is quite the lead that he's got, and unless something happens to Kostovich, I think there's no way Fripp's going to be able to make up that gap in the last couple of laps. Graham Sanders going for the lane. There we go, David. Nostra David strikes again.
Yeah, I don't know, just, you know, the difference between how many laps he proved he could do and how many laps he needed to do was just, yeah, too much. So I think that also sends the race a lap shorter as well, because he's taken the white flag in pit lane as Graham Sanders. Dakota Fripp still feels he needs to defend against Corey Macklemore, interestingly. It has put Fripp and Macklemore back in front of Sanders, and therefore required them to do an extra lap, which is interesting.
Yeah, something that these guys in the GT class might not have counted on. We'll have to wait and see how that works out for them. Graham Sanders, though, is out of the pit lane. It's another 5.5 second stop, and he comes out well ahead of Andrew Berry. That's a guaranteed victory for Graham Sanders. And for Spencer Kostovich, it's going to be a white flag for him this time around, we believe. But you see how Dakota Fripp has managed to make up all of that time over the last 90 minutes after that penalty. Goes to show he's almost on a different level to a lot of the GT class competitors here. And I know it's still early days in the championship, but I'm thinking that it's Dakota Fripp's to lose, as Graham Sanders comes through the final few corners. One more car to pass, one of the Team Tortuga BMWs. And then it's just flat out to the line. Sanders was the one who made the least mistakes today in the prototype class, and it has certainly paid off for him. It's a win, finally, for Geodesic Racing in the Omologato Championship as Graham Sanders crosses the line, winning in the prototype class. He'll be a very happy chappy for sure. Spencer Kostovich, meanwhile, only has about half a lap to go in the GT class, and he'll be able to take victory himself. Andrew Berry makes it Action Sim Sport on the podium in prototype. An excellent job from Andrew. Probably could have challenged Sanders for the win.
Corey Macklemore in third is out of fuel right now, but everyone behind him has already taken the checkered flag. So get out and push. You'll still get third place, Corey. So long as you can get that thing to the line, he can't lose third place.
Oh, but he's losing speed bit by bit down that straight. Here's Spencer Kostovich, meanwhile. One more turn to go for him, and it's going to be a very well-earned victory in this GT class. Yes, his main competitor, Dakota Fripp, got a penalty right at the start, but I think that should take nothing away from Kostovich's drive today. Full Send Racing finally making it a different winner in GT, and Dakota Fripp brings it into the pits on the checkered flag as we continue to monitor Corey Macklemore in the bottom right-hand corner. His got his...
behind him has taken the checkered flag.
Probably waiting to gear up for a push. Are you allowed to do that?
I feel like that's... I feel like the answer is no, but I mean, we'll see what happens here, because the way I read it, there's no way Macklemore, even if he parked and towed, and then towed across the checkered flag, Macklemore would still get third. He'd be counted as having towed across the checkered flag, and still would have done that quicker than everyone else, because everyone else from fourth down already took the checkered flag a lap down on him. So I don't think he needs to get pushed. I don't think Macklemore can lose third from here. But there could be a weird quirk of the timing or something with everyone else having taken the checkered flag except Macklemore. Has Fripp gone across the timing line?
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he went across the line while in the pits, and well, it's a Team Tortuga party here. David Browning has joined Johan Boyson and Corey Macklemore here. Macklemore up on the banking, and he's going to use some of that to gain a little bit of extra speed as he coasts to the line. How's this for a formation finish? I mean, it's not really a formation finish.
I mean, really? Is this the slowest lap you've ever seen someone stand on the podium?
Yeah, certainly.
He's going to take the low line. That's the short way.
Oh, he gains speed. Looks like he was just saving.
Get out of his way, guys.
What's going on?
What's
going on here? Goodness me. Well, it looks like Macklemore is going to get into the pits before he crosses the line. This is one of the oddest ways to take third place I have ever seen, and take care, guys. The Tortuga wall getting into pit lane, and with that, they okay. Goodness me.
He has towed now, so that will bring an end to proceedings. And we'll see if he still gets scored in third place. I imagine he would, but weird things can happen if you tow on the final lap.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess we can run through our results then. Graham Sanders taking the win in the prototype class by 20 seconds over Andrew Berry, both of them going for the short little splash and dash at the end. Jason Goddard coming home in third, the last car on the lead lap. Hayden Gober, unfortunately, couldn't keep up with the podium getters, and well, retirement central for Connor Harrington and Tyson Meyer, both ending up out of this race thanks to mistakes and damage and setup issues. Meanwhile, in the GT class, well, Kostovich, it was his day today. Dakota Fripp and Corey Macklemore completing the podium there.
Yeah, that's the official timing there. Spencer Kostovich, your winner in GT. Dakota Fripp in second, and Corey Macklemore in third. 2 minutes 37 seconds behind on a 1 minute 20 lap. Johan Boyson in fourth, a lap down, just by the quirk of where the overall prototype leader was. He wasn't a full minute 20 behind. And then Rigger in fifth, Zach Plummer for sixth, John Bodefer in seventh. Anthony Rossimano wins his little fights to get eighth ahead of Tristan Iglesias. Orson Morales in 10th.
And running through the rest of the results of our GT class there, Sedlak coming home 2 laps down, Aaron Ackles and David Browning rounding out the top 15, and then unfortunately it's retirement central once again. Daniel Towell unable to make it to the finish. Of course, he had that big incident with Aaron Ackles earlier on. That's where Ackles got the damage to his front, and Carnero not making it to the finish. Neither did John Derrick, neither did Maxime Detilly at the end of it. And Garrett Thompson, he didn't even make the start, unfortunately disqualified in the qualifying session. So that rounds out the results, and we're going to go to driver interviews now. First up, a winner in the prototype class, Graham Sanders. Congratulations, Graham, but it looked like it was a real race of attrition in the prototype class today.
Thank you. Yeah, it really was. It's first of all really unfortunate with Tyson and Connor. I know Connor got a penalty I didn't look over their incidents, but yeah, it was really unfortunate. Unfortunate also that Adam and Marcus, the two fastest guys, first and second in the championship, they weren't here tonight. So I don't think the result would have been the same if they were here. But yeah, I mean, I'll take a win regardless. So.
Well, coming through on the strategy, it looks like the two-stopper was definitely the way to go in prototype, but we were thinking that there would have been hints of a one-stop. Do you think it would have been possible today?
Oh, yes, definitely. If I'm not mistaken, I think Andrew did a one-stopper, but he went. I think he went 2 laps longer on the first stint. I wasn't saving at all in the first stint, and then second stint, I did my best to save as much as I possibly could, and it just wasn't going to work for me. But I think if I was saving from the get go, I think it was definitely possible.
And question about the traffic. It seemed that it was mostly clean around Indianapolis, but Sector 1 looked like one of the squeeze points when making your way through the GT field.
Yes, definitely. I mean, really, the only safe spot to pass is, I guess, kind of going into is it turn 3 or 4? That first kind of sharp right-hander. You can kind of pass there or on the back straight. Other than that, you really gotta wait until after the final corner.
Or would you like to see Indianapolis again on a future season of this championship?
I would if iRacing gives us the updated layout. Other than that, I would like to maybe see maybe one of the newer tracks that we're getting this year.
Yeah, certainly. Hockenheim would be a very good addition to this championship. Well, big congratulations again to you, Graham. It's the first win for Geodesic Racing this season. Is there anyone that you'd like to thank while you're here?
I'd like to thank everyone at Geo, Omologato, and everyone at SimSpeed for the awesome broadcast. It's always much appreciated. Thank you.
Graham D. Sanders, winner in the prototype class there. Unfortunately, we are still having some issues with power, so we're only going to be able to interview the winners here tonight. David, Dakota Fripper's with you. Oh, no, he's not.
No, our winner, Spencer Kostovich, is with me. And Spencer, a winner at Indianapolis, milk, skim milk, or juice?
I'm going whole milk for sure. But no, it was kind of an up and down race. I guess I really didn't have too much pace in the beginning. I just didn't practice. I couldn't practice as much as I wanted to, but I got pretty lucky, I guess. As soon as I saw Dakota got a penalty, I was like, okay, I'll start pushing, and turns out I had at least more pace than the guys that I ended up passing. But yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster.
The tale of two halves on this track. Obviously a monster of a pit straight, but then the infield kind of tight across the curbs. Is that where the Lamborghini was good, or is the Lamborghini good in a straight line? Because you definitely had some... First half of the race, we had a real GT train going on there, with BMWs in the pack, with the Audi in the pack, with the Ferraris in the pack as well. You would have got a good idea of where the Lamborghini sits compared to those other models.
Yeah, I noticed that, when I did some testing, that the Lamborghini just is not very good on super low wing in the road course. So everybody else, it seemed, was on minimum wing. I think it's 2 for GT3s, and I was running 3. So I did have a bit of an upper hand because of that. But I mean, yeah, it seemed like the Dakota's Audi. I mean, that car is just so planted, and you can get away with running super low wing and still be fast in the road course. But Lamborghini's good enough today, I guess.
late pit stop from the prototype leader. Saw you guys go an extra lap longer. Maybe caught out Corey McLemore. Were you ready? Were you ready for that?
Well, because I pitted before that, and I took a conservative amount of fuel anyway, so I did have a lap extra, and I think luckily Dakota pitted at the same time, so he probably took the same amount. And then after the LMP2 cycled through, it was better for us that we ended up going a lap less, because if I had taken that fuel and then they go faster, and that would not have been very good. No.
Well, someone had to break the Fripp streak. I'll think of a catchier name for that at some point, I promise. But 3 in a row for him off the bat, and now it's you to grab a win in the Geodesic Omologato Championship. Who would you like to thank?
I'd just like to thank my family, and I would like to thank Full Send Racing and you guys for putting this on. It's honestly just so professional and really cool that I get to watch myself back on a professional broadcast and everything. So yeah, and then thanks to Tristan, I didn't get to do too much practice, so he kind of helped me a lot with the setup. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, and congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Spencer Kostovich, their winner in the GT class. I do apologize for my flub just before. It's I really don't have an excuse for that.
You've got to get you more of that whole milk like Spencer is drinking.
Yes, indeed. Maybe a bit of iced coffee in there as well. But that brings to an end proceedings for tonight here at the Geodesic Omologato Championship. Some fantastic victories that we've seen there from Graham Sanders and Spencer Kostovich. But the next round of the championship is certainly going to bring the fire. Cannot wait for it in 2 weeks' time. Don't forget, we're racing at Imola, the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari, a historic European road course, and certainly an appearance on many sports car racing calendars in real life and in sim racing. Those chicanes are certainly going to make traffic difficult, and those high curbs are ones that the prototypes in particular will really want to avoid. We hope that you will join us for that in 2 weeks' time, but for now, it is goodbye from us here at SimSpeed TV. We want to give a big thanks to Omologato once again for their support of this series. Don't forget, Speed 2021 at checkout. If you're shopping on the Omologato website, free silicone wristband. Maybe check out the Indianapolis automatic and chronograph watches from Omologato. From all of us here at SimSpeed TV, myself, Reese Gardiner, David Haynes alongside me in the commentary box, and Jay Kennedy on cameras making everything happen behind the scenes, we say goodbye for now.
This is fantastic. This is GT Racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my god! Oh, big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go! Oh no!
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
No!